Good evening, Mr. Mayor and Commissioners. Even as wet as it is, we needed it, just not all at once. Anyway, the reason I'm here is to talk to you at least about the present status of where we are in relationship to your request at the last meeting to talk about the possible purchase of Mr. Nolan's property on Grandview. And I do want to say that we have ordered the appraisal. The quickest we could get it done was in 2 weeks, so it will be here next week. We hope by earlier than Friday, but Friday at the latest. Certainly then we will be able to do something with what we should put in the contract. I've already distributed a copy of the contract to Mr. Nolan to look at, give us his comments. We put in the figure of the county appraiser's assessed value on it, or the appraised value that we derive back from our appraiser as being the rate that you would pay based upon prior discussions of staying within the appraised value. At this point in time, that's about all we could do until we see what the appraisal is. We can't give you a contract until we have that, so that the finance department can certify that we have the funds for it. So that's where we stand on that particular part of it. There is one thing that we found in reviewing the property, and if you don't mind, I'd like to distribute it to all of you. And I do want to say that it's an error that we have found that we have conveyed to Mr. Nolan and asked him to try to be sure, if he could, to rectify it or find out if there's maybe a Scribner's error. We believe it's something that can be corrected, but we want to be sure that what we have is certainly something that is marketable for us in the future if you do happen to buy it. And that is, there's a small out parcel, or what we found as being in there, at least in the documents that we have in the public records, that show that small 7.6 something by 20 foot parcel. It's right in the middle that, according to what we've been able to research, is not in any of the documents that are reported. And as that little red thing. And as you can see, it's right in the middle. And so Mr. Nolan and I have talked. We're going to work together on trying to get this resolved to make sure that if there is something that's wrong, we'll get it corrected. Okay? That's as far as I can take it. If you would like to talk at all to Mr. Nolan or to Mr. Berger, Mr. Berger is here, and he'll give you a short talk on his particular area of expertise, which is the redevelopment.
I have a question. Just would you say that 7.65 by 20 foot hiatus, what's the problem with that?
What we found is that in one of the deeds, it was excluded as an exclusion on the actual deed, but wasn't included anywhere else. And we were surprised at that. And because it's excluded, nobody owns it as far as we know. It has to go back to some prior deed that they'll have to research to find out, did somebody mistakenly leave it off and not add it to something else?
They'll do that through the chain of title?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Right. Okay. I'll give it to Mr. Berger now.
Thank you. One of the things we wanted to provide to you or add was some of the information about what we have in the CRA funds, that there are funds available for land acquisition. I wanted to also point out to you that with a recent Supreme Court ruling, this is the state Supreme Court, I think you've all seen some information regarding that. We have some uncertainty about our financial future in the CRAs, and we don't know if we'll just have cash on hand or what we will have in the future. So we have to be very careful when we look at how much money we're spending, and if and I know we have enough money, but we're going to be taking it from potentially other priorities we're already working on. And a good example of that is Main Street RFP, where we had some authorization to look at going out and getting the financing, And now that has evaporated essentially at this point. We don't have that ability to go out and do that right now. We're not sure where we go from here, and we're waiting for this issue to get resolved by the courts. So that is what we're trying to figure out, and so I can't give you really solid information about what's going to be left at the end of the day, other than the cash is there now, and I can use it and go forward with the RFP at Main Street that we're ready to go out with. It'd be nice to have some cash on hand to place into a future project if we want to go forward with that. But again, I think it's also important to look at the opportunity we have now, and I'm willing and certainly will go forward in looking at that. This particular piece of property. Now, one other point I wanted to make is that in looking at any redevelopment project we do, if I were purchasing this property, I would want to have everything, the streamliner and everything, if we're going to develop something that's going to make economic sense in the future. So this would be the start of doing that, and this essentially would be land banking for us to make something happen there down the road, and we're in that business. Take questions,
please. How much is in the Main Street redevelopment fund?
In this current year,
yeah.
with all of the different line items, we probably have over $2.7 million right now.
Okay, and what is the value of the property on Main Street that we're looking at purchasing, collecting?
The value right now, we have
the asking price. In other words, what I'm guessing, I'm hearing you say is that we may end up having to make a choice between the Main Street property and this property. Is that accurate? No?
No. No.
Okay.
And excuse me for interrupting, but I think what we're doing is we're just making aware that there were other properties that originally were contemplated that are no longer in the mix because of the court's opinion on the financing of those projects. I think what Mr. Berger is saying, this project would be a land banking opportunity for us now with the long-range goal of trying to acquire the streamlined or adjoining property so you have something that goes to A1A to put the package together. And with this project, there are a number of lots that are outlots, 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5, and 5A, that are not in his control that we need to acquire because they represent really problems for us, not only from the standpoint of being able to develop his property, but from the standpoint of the quality of that part of the community, that they have a negative impact on that. So our goal should be to acquire all of those in the end, including that area up to Streamline. I think that's what he was trying to say. That's what I'm
Mr.
I'll concur.
Mr. I'd like to. Sure. Do we still have are we still working on the Main Street project?
We are in a limited way, and we have a meeting coming up to talk about it, what we can do with it. I mean, there are ways to, without us buying the project, there's ways to RFP it out, RFQ it out, and we want to talk about that. I'm not sure the owners of the property are willing to do that, but we're going to explore some of those opportunities.
And if I understand the court ruling correctly, if we were going to try to bond any of this, it would take a referendum?
That's correct.
Okay.
Anything over a year.
Okay, and, okay, thank you.
I would like to ask Mr. Nolan to come up, and please, Commissioner, if you got a question, just stay up here. You can stay up here, Reed, as well.
I want to ask a question.
Yes, he stayed.
Yeah, okay, for the city manager. Did you say that there was $2.7 million in the Main Street redevelopment budget?
In the current year, yes. I mean, we're talking about there's money in there right now for historic preservation and for many other.
I thought it was like about $7 million or something this year. So
in capital, we're speaking of capital projects.
Right, there's already, the money is there, so a lot of that money is already there for the Main Street area, isn't it? Is it not? I mean, that this isn't something we're banking on for the Main Street project.
The total budget is more than what he's saying. He's saying available for capital, he's saying.
That's right.
Yes, sir, I just
Okay.
wanted to clarify that. Thank you.
Mr. Nolan, I just want to clarify something without embarrassing you, but it seemed like last time when we started discussing this, you were sort of under the gun to get something accomplished in a short period of time.
We are still.
And do you have the ability, we're waiting, I'm hearing we're waiting on appraisal, it's going to take 2 weeks.
If I may, yeah, I think I can. Yesterday